2022, a totally different year when it comes to Australia Day. For the first time in history, we're going to have a virtual Australia Day. That might sound weird, but that's how it is. The situation, the pandemic we have, it's what we're dealing with. Not much we can do about it. Now, every year at Australia Day, we do have and invite an ambassador, somebody from Tasmania, well known, not well known, but who has volunteered to become an ambassador. And this year for King Island, we have an ambassador that you know. You've never seen her maybe, but you know her. You've heard her. Did you ever watch cartoons? Did you ever watch this?
The windbreak should be over here.
Well, yeah, but the sticks are over here.
What? You're too lazy to move a couple of sticks.
Nutsy, Blinky said I was lazy.
Well, if he doesn't like to be called lazy, how about uncooperative, pig-headed, stubborn?
That doesn't ring a bell? You listen to the radio. Well, you listen to King Island Radio. Did you ever listen to How Green Was My Cactus? And this is not a program about plants or whatever and flowers. No, How Green Was My Cactus? See if you recognize.
Cactus 3 CD set at a pre-carbon tax price of $49.
Free call 1-800-222-887 or online at cactus.com.au.
Look, get it before I repeal it.
Now, if you still don't know, folks, I give up. I turn on the camera here and we invite our ambassador for 2022 to King Island, Robin Moore AM. Robin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Wade. Lovely to be on King Island. And I'm real, you're real, so this is not virtual. We're just really together.
That's how it is. That hey, have you been to King Island? You were going to be here, but have you been to King Island?
I have been, and I loved it. It was many, many, many years ago, and I didn't stay nearly long enough. And it's still in my heart, and the green still lingers on, and the friendliness and the warm welcome I received still lingers.
Enjoyed the cheese when you were here and the crayfish?
Oh, yes, all of that. Yep, but I want to stay longer next time.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's not going to happen this year, Robin, because you're going to do a virtual presentation for us. So the good thing is that people don't have to go to the Australia Day festivities on the island. You don't even have to be on King Island to watch it all. So let's look at the positive side of it all, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. I mean, we just are international now. That's how we're going to treat it.
Well, that's how we have to look at it. Now, as we said, you did voiceovers in Blinky Bill. You're still part of How Green Was My Cactus, the political bit satire radio program. Now, reading a little bit, you started your working live as a primary school teacher. Now, I can understand that. Teach kids how to do, what to do, how to work. And then in a sudden, Robin says, you know what I do? I'm going to do some voiceovers. Is that how it happened?
Well, I've always seen the world through my ears because my dad was a stockman, a drover, a shearer, chef and a wool baler. And I was born in Tassie, in Hobart, and then we lived on sheep and cattle stations way up in the north of Queensland. So radio was my friend. And I had the opportunity in my first year of teaching to do ABC educational radio broadcasts. And that's when I fell in love with voiceovers. And 5 years into teaching, I said, I have to go to Sydney. I have to try my luck because when, you're standing in front of the microphone, that's the window to the world. And it just took off in the most remarkable way and just do ads and did political satires and radio comedies and cartoons for about 17 years in Sydney. And then ongoingly, we moved back home to Hobart. And I've been commuting to Sydney every week for 49 weeks of the year until COVID to do recordings. So it's a big part of my life, and it's why I love the power of the word.
Yeah, it's how do you try that out for yourself? Is it like you started one day, you tried to do some funny voices or whatever, and you thought, oh, maybe I should do something with this? Or did somebody else say, hey, Robin, you know that you could do more with your voice?
I didn't even realise there were voiceover people. And when I was little, the serials were real. Smokey Dawson was a real cowboy. Hop Parakin, you know, they just lingered in my imagination. And so I didn't even know it was a job until somebody suggested I do voiceovers on ABC. And then this whole world opened up, and I was privileged to work with the famous voiceover people, Ross Higgins, Kev Goldsby, Keith Scott, who does 400 different voices. So Keith and I worked on all of the Blinky Bill dot movies with Yoram Gross. We did most of his productions over about 30 years. And then we've been working together on How Green Was My Cactus for 33 years. So that's the longest running radio series in Australia. We just finished Cactus after, 7,500 episodes, making jokes about the government. And that's what's so amazing, that I'm an Australia Day ambassador, and yet I'm free enough to do political satire about our government. And I'm going to be speaking about that in my Australia Day speech, that, you know, we take that for granted, this wonderful country that we wake up into every day, where we have the freedom to make jokes about our leaders, you know, and I won't be arrested at the end of that.
Well, considering our governments and what you hear and read about it, it's a program could go for another 50 years easily, isn't it?
It could do, but I think we've done enough now. And in fact, our writer, Doug Edwards, who's a multi-award-winning writer, just said that the government wasn't funny anymore. So when Slow-Mo came in, because for those people who don't know this show, it's set on an island called Cactus Island, because it's cactus. And any resemblance to any living politician is completely coincidental. You know, so when it started, it was run by a king called King Bonza, the charismatic, who was Bob Hawke. And his wife was Queen Hayseed the Grouse. And she sounded like this: "Oh, stuff my mushrooms." And when Hazel Hawke heard that, she said, it's close enough to be uncomfortable. So most of the Pollies actually love Cactus as well. And we really just use it as a mirror, you know, to the comedy. And we watch the TV and listen to the radio news, and there's an angle for our comedy show. It's wonderful.
Well, you've been doing lots of voiceovers. What was ever the hardest one to do, looking back?
Oh, gosh, I've had to do like a child's foot. I've had to sort of do the voice for a nappy. But one of the most challenging was an iconic ad. It became iconic, and that's the spray and wipe commercial. So they'd already filmed Paula Duncan doing this crazy fast video, and we tried to sing the jingle using many styles to match this fast action. And I tried operatic, I tried country, I tried ballad, I tried everything, to the Ian Drury song that they'd done a parody on. And finally, at about 11 o'clock at night, I said to the writers, what if I do absolutely nothing? I just sing it as though I've got a brick on my head. And so the first ad went to air. Got a call from Mr. Fryer. He's bringing round a buyer. The place had looked a-fright from the little do last night. Spray and wipe. You know, so that's been on for, 18 years, and it sells millions of dollars worth of spray and wipe. But it was finding the way through, because doing it in that flat style made everybody laugh. And when you laugh, you turn up in your life. You're in the now. And so people actually took notice of the ad, and it became, you know, a huge success over 22 years.
Is it also, Robin, like with doing Blinky Bill and you do the voiceovers, is it almost like so that you almost have to close your eyes and you sort of want to become Blinky Bill to make it easier to do the voice, or how does it work?
Look, it's a funny osmotic process. Keith Scott does 400 impressions. So he looks at a drawing and then it reminds him of an actor or another cartoon character, and he does the voice. I look at the face and let the face kind of tell me. So if I'm looking at a witch, I did a witch for Yoram Gross in one of his movies, The Magic Riddle. And this witch, she had one tooth in the bottom of her jaw. So that meant that, you know, she had to speak as though she spat everywhere. And she was so mean. And she had this laugh that was like, So it was the facial features that gave me the character. Whereas with Blinky, when Yoram asked me to create the voice for Blinky in 1992, there was a larrikinism about the drawing. And he reminded me of one of my favourite students that I taught, Scott, who's now a fisherman. We're trying to find Scott to say, Scott, you're the inspiration for Blinky Bill, because as a little boy, he'd go, Mrs. Moore, Mrs. Moore, Mrs. Moore, look at that bird's nest, they lay 3 eggs. And he used to take us on nature walks at Rokeby School. And that's the essence of Blinky. Blinky is feisty and he's adventurous and he loves his mates and he's kind of the embodiment of the Australian spirit.
So when I do Blinky Bill, it's like it's another part of me. Like I live in Robin's head, she's my voice coach. But she has no idea what I'm going to say next. Like right now, she has no idea because I could say anything. I could say, I wish she would just shut up and let me do this interview with Wade.
And see, I didn't know he was going to say that, but he just does. And the lovely thing about Blinky is that as well as entertaining, children and adults all around the world, he went to 70 countries. We haven't recorded Blinky for 20 years, but I've done thousands and thousands of phone calls for children in Make-A-Wish, because I'm national patron of Make-A-Wish Australia and have been for nearly 30 years. And I'm a wish granter for children who have critical illnesses. And Blinky has the power to heal. So it's quite common for me to ring Make-A-Wish children. The first time it ever happened, I rang a little girl with cystic fibrosis and she was drowning in the fluids in her lungs.
And I said, Alicia, I just met your mum and dad and they said that they love you to the moon and back and that you're extraordinary. And she said, I know. And I said, I want you to promise every day, as tough as things are, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and you got to whisper, I am extraordinary. Will you promise you'll do that? And she said she would. Now, the next day, I received an email from her mum who said that they went to the doctors for her regular checkup and the doctor said, what did you do? What did you change? I've never seen anything like this. Her lung function has increased dramatically. And her mother sheepishly said, a koala rang her. Now, this deeply moves me. I'm already moved just telling that story. I rang a little boy recently who is autistic. He hides under his hoodie. He doesn't speak to anybody in the classroom. And he draws Blinky Bill. And the teacher contacted me and I did just a 2-minute phone call and a little letter from Blinky. And the next day she wrote saying that they couldn't wipe the smile off his face. He was talking to everybody in the classroom and he was holding on to this letter as though it was a Willy Wonka golden ticket. So that's why I love the word. When we have the right intent and the right purpose and that we take action, that you can make miracles happen. You can transform other people's lives. And that's why now, from a voiceover artist, I've moved for 30 years into being a speaker because, my privilege is to pull forth from people their passion, their potential, their dreams and aspirations, and give them the confidence and the courage to jump into who are they going to be each day? And what legacy do they want to leave? What impact do they want to make in their community, in their family, in their workplace? So that's why I'm absolutely privileged to be an ambassador and have been an ambassador for nearly, 28 years. And so every Australia Day, I get to be in a different community and, and tell powerful stories about being Australian and calling forth our best selves, our audacious character, our ability to give people a leg up. I think that's one of my favourite characteristics, Wade. We have the highest volunteerism in the world per head of population. So we help people when they're in a crisis. Other countries, look out for number one, and we're seeing that on the news every night from overseas. But we don't do that. We've got to hold on to that sacred ability we have to see in others their best selves, their beauty, their potential, and pull them back into the picture.
Now, every year, well, you have to make a decision here on King Island who's going to be the ambassador for this year. Considering all your voiceovers, I reckon we might as well book you in for the next 10 years because just use a different voice every year and have a different story. I don't know.
Yes, in fact, my friend Keith Scott, who does the 400 Voices, I mean, I love having him over to dinner when I lived in Sydney. And, because who was coming to dinner? It was one of those 400 people, and he would tell so many stories in different voices. Yeah, we have many alter egos, don't we? And I bet you're the same, Wade. I bet you have this secret gift being on the microphone where you can create all these other characters.
I'm not sure about characters, but I do say that the difference, what I have always found doing radio and television, give me radio, because television, all you do is add a few lines to pictures, where with radio, you tell the story. You create the story almost, isn't it?
That's it. Oh, the magic of sound. I mean, imagine this little girl out at, in Tyree Torrens Creek, 600 k's away from Mount Isa. That's listening to radio serials. They were real. These people lived in my head. And that's what I'm seizing on now with all my Make-A-Wish work and my speaking work. People get very quiet sometimes. After a big laugh, they'll go really quiet, because you're drawing them into themselves, or into their imagination, into them, evaluating how they've been living their life. I just did a very powerful urgent wish, Make-A-Wish, for a little girl who was in palliative care. And I received a phone call. Would I please make up a story, write a story immediately for this little girl and record it, because she wanted to go on a helicopter ride over Melbourne, and she was too ill for them to land the helicopter on the roof of the hospital and take her. And so I found out as much as I could about her, and wrote this story about a superhero who had the ability that every time she imagined something, it became real. She only had to imagine being in a helicopter, and suddenly she could hear the sound of the rotors. And suddenly she was in the helicopter, and she took off, and she flew over her school, and there were her friends from kindergarten, and she buzzed her home. And as she swooped down into the backyard, there was her dog jumping and leaping and barking at her. And it sort of took this little girl on a huge adventure via sound, an oral adventure. And when the helicopter landed, she realized she had the best ride of her life. And we sent that recording immediately to the hospital, and the mum played the recording to her child. And actually, I was told that mum blew the hairdryer into this little girl's face, so that she had the experience too of the helicopter and the wind and the rotor blades. And it was so moving, and that's the word being used in its best way,
Yeah.
and say, which word are you going to be when you wake up in the morning? To choose your own self. Facebook doesn't tell you, you tell you. Donald Dump in America doesn't tell you, you tell you who you're going to be. So we have so much power with the word.
Well, you mentioned the power of the word, which is also pretty much, you're running line with all your public speaking that you do. I read somewhere that you've done over 1,000 now. I don't know how you keep track of it. It's, what's the greatest group of people, or sort of people, or organization to talk to do your public speaking?
Well, I speak to anybody who's breathing, Wade. So it doesn't matter which sector they're from, because I'm a story collector. And I always ask my client the question in my brief sheet. The first one is, what is missing, the presence of which would make a difference? So if that was there, everything would sing and hum. Their school staff would just love coming to school. Their factory workers would just love producing these items. These farmers would be able to be bigger than the circumstances, bigger than the drought, bigger than the wool prices. So I work from that basis, where my client tells me what they want for their people. And I get to take them on a philosophical journey into their very being. And I add stories to embed their experience, so that they're taken on this beautiful roller coaster ride where we laugh until we nearly wet our pants. And then suddenly people are crying over, a Make-A-Wish story that's really powerful and poignant. And then they evaluate their lives, or they question, gee, what, have I sold out? Am I being the best boss I could be? You know, I held my child in my arms when they were a baby, and I was going to be the best dad and the best mum. And now I'm too busy. What happened to me? You know, so people start to look at the really important questions in life. And I only have little chunks of time. Like I've got an hour mostly with people. Sometimes if I'm lucky, I've got a 90-minute keynote. And I share hundreds of stories in there so that people are going, oh, 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 oh. I call them, you know, peppered with bugger me moments. So every story will take people into an insight. And they go, and so by the end of the time, my clients are saying often, you know, wow, that was above expectations. It was beyond, we didn't expect that. People are, they're unrecognizable. You know, Bert came in a cynic, and look at him now. He wants to just, you know, play big. He wants to be a leader in the company. So I have no particular favorite audience. All my audiences are my favorites. And every time I speak, it's my first time. You know, my beautiful mum who had dementia gave me that gift because she could only remember for 30 seconds. So, you know, I've done thousands of interviews over my life. I'm 71 now. I'm 71 now. Wait, I'm in the quickening of my life. I can cark it before we get to the end of this interview. You know, so my mum taught me that everything I do can be first time. So, you know, this is the first time I've ever done an interview.
Mm-hmm. Now, interesting is that you keep talking about Make a Wish, and I can hear the passion about it, how you're involved with it and enjoy it. Let me turn it around. If you could make a wish, what would you still like to achieve? Okay, 71, but what would you still like to do or to achieve? What's your wish?
My wish is a lovely question. Thank you. Is bound up in my purpose. I did a course once that asked us to encapsulate our purpose in 10 words or fewer. And we sat with this, and what my purpose is to be an irresistible invitation to fully participate in life. So every time I open this hole in my face, my intent is to invite people into that joy of fully participating in their life, to be excited, to feel appreciated. So my wish would be that when I cark it, that I've created a legacy that lives on in others. So that there are better parents out there. There are teachers that go on and are so inspiring their children want to be teachers. You know, that there are farmers out there who are no longer pissed off in front of their children, so that their children actually want to take over the farm. You know, I do a lot of work in regional rural Australia with farmers, and we often talk about succession planning, you know, but who would want to take over the farm if, when times are tough, all the kids here are, oh, bloody rain, bloody drought, bloody fires, bloody government, bloody this, bloody that. It's like, gee, Dad, oh, I'd love to take over the farm. Not, you know, when you can have that legacy that goes on beyond you, that would be my wish. Yeah.
Now, coming back to, of course, why we talk and why we'll see you next week. What does Australia Day mean to you?
Oh, well, I'm going to be sharing a story in my speech about becoming an ambassador, because it says on my birth certificate, born in Hobart, 1950. But I didn't really become Australian until my first ambassadorial role at Fairfield Council in Sydney. And I'll share about what happened, but I realised that I was just born Australian. I hadn't actually chosen to be Australian. And so that's a really pivotal moment in my life. And I actually invited the audience that day to take the oath with the new Australians in the room. And that was the start of the affirmation ceremony, because I shared it with the Australia Day Council. And a couple of years later, I was at Mollymook, and the mayor said, oh, Donna, would you read this affirmation card and get everybody to say the oath? And I went, oh my goodness, this has actually occurred. It's been brought into being by my realization on that first day. So one is look, we don't have one Australia Day. I know there's lots of controversy around it. We have 365 Australia Days. We could have Australia Day on any day. We could have it the day before, the day after. We could have it on Christmas Day if we wanted. As long as we just take some time out to acknowledge that we woke up in the freest country in the world, with one of the best cultures in the world, you know, where people matter still, where we have a larrikin sense of humour, where we give people a leg up, where we laugh so easily that hopefully we can face adversity by finding that jocular, that larrikin sense of humour. That's what Australia Day means to me. It's a reminding day. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm a reminder-vator. And I think Australia Day, wherever it's put, it is a reminding day to, you know, refresh, re-engage, recreate, you know, have another look at what we've been given, put the complaints aside and start again, and make this year the best year.
Well, being a reminder day, Robert, I'm sure on the 26th, next Wednesday, when you do your presentation, we're going to have you again on video. I'm sure it will be a reminder for a lot of people here on King Island, and they will enjoy and hear you and see you speak. We're not going to give away what you're going to talk about and what it is precisely. That's when you tune in on Australia Day. Robin Moore, we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Wade. It's been lovely to be on King Island with you, and I will be coming back, I assure you.